History is filled with epic conflicts, wars that shaped nations, defined entire civilizations. But what if the greatest war ever fought is one we cannot fully prove? What if its story has been passed down, not through dusty archives and official records, but through the epic verses of a blind poet? I'm talking about the Trojan War, a clash of titans, a decade-long siege fought for a stolen queen, a conflict where gods walked among mortals, tipping the scales of battle with divine whims. We've all heard the stories, the invincible Achilles, and of course, the giant wooden horse that brought a city to its knees. But how much of it is true? Did these legendary heroes ever really draw breath? Did 1,000 ships truly launch across the Aegean Sea? The story comes to us primarily from Homer's epic poem, The Iliad. It is a masterpiece of literature, a cornerstone of Western culture. But it is not a history book. It is a tale of rage, honor, and fate. It focuses on a few intense weeks in the 10th and final year of the war. Homer's narrative is our main window into this brutal, heroic age. For centuries, scholars dismissed it as pure fiction. A wonderful story, but nothing more. They believed Troy itself was a figment of the Greek imagination. But the whispers of its existence never truly faded. They lingered in the ancient texts, daring someone to look closer, to dig deeper. The question of truth has haunted archaeologists and historians for generations. Is there a kernel of historical fact buried beneath layers of myth and poetry? Could a real conflict, perhaps a trade dispute or a raid for resources, have been the spark that ignited this legendary fire? The story we know is grand and dramatic, filled with supernatural interventions and larger-than-life characters. Yet, beneath the epic scale, there are hints of a real human struggle. The descriptions of warfare, the armor, the tactics, they feel grounded. They speak of a Bronze Age reality, a time of warrior kings and fortified citadels. The search for the historical Troy is a detective story on a grand scale. This mystery is precisely what makes the Trojan War so compelling. It exists in the gray area between fact and fable. It challenges us to peel back the layers of legend and search for the man-made foundations beneath. We must travel back in time, over 3,000 years, to a world lit by flickering torches and ruled by the sword. We must walk the windy plains of Troy and the sun-drenched shores of Greece. Only by immersing ourselves in their world can we begin to understand what might have driven these ancient peoples to embark on one of the most famous and devastating wars in all of human storytelling. The legend is powerful, but the potential reality is even more so. Imagine a world before Rome, before the great philosophers of Athens. This is the late Bronze Age, around 1200 BC. A brutal, magnificent era. Great empires rise and fall across the Near East. The Hittites, the Egyptians, the Mycenaeans, the Achaeans, as Homer called them. Not the democratic Athenians we picture. A loose confederation of warrior kingdoms, each ruled by a powerful king. A Wanax, from within a mighty, fortified palace. Mycenae, with its immense lion gate, Pylos, Tyrans, centers of power, wealth, and military might. Achaean kingdoms were seafaring peoples. Their lives were tied to the wine-dark Aegean Sea. They were traders. They were raiders. Their ships, long and sleek, with a single square sail and rows of oarsmen. These ships were the key to their prosperity and power. They sailed to Egypt, to the Levant, and to the coast of Anatolia, modern-day Turkey. Life was precarious. Harvests could fail. Neighbors could attack. Power was measured in bronze armor, bronze swords, bronze-tipped spears, a hard, glittering, and violent world. Loyalty was owed to your king, your city, and your fellow warriors. Honor was everything. Shame was a fate worse than death itself. Across the Aegean Sea, on the coast of Anatolia, stood the legendary city of Troy. It was known to its people as Wilusa. It was known as Ilios. This was no mere backwater town. Archaeological evidence suggests it was a formidable place. Troy controlled access to the Dardanelles Strait, the vital waterway connecting the Aegean to the Black Sea. Any ship wanting to pass would have had to deal with the Trojans. This made the city incredibly wealthy and powerful. It was protected by enormous, sloping limestone walls, so high and thick they were said to have been built by Apollo and by Poseidon. It was a prize worth fighting for. Inside those formidable walls was a bustling city, a royal citadel. The Acropolis rose at its center, housing the palace of King Priam. Below, a lower city teemed with houses, workshops, markets. The plains surrounding Troy were fertile, ideal for raising horses. The Trojans were famous for their horses. This was a sophisticated and prosperous kingdom, a rival to the fragmented powers of the Achaean Greeks. It stood as a bastion of Anatolian culture, looking out across the sea towards the ambitious warlords of the West. The stage was set. Two powerful competing cultures, separated by a narrow stretch of water. It would not take much to ignite the flames of a catastrophic war. A war is nothing without its warriors, leaders, catalysts. The Trojan War is a story defined by its characters, figures so powerful they have become archetypes. At the heart of it all is Helen, not just a queen, but the most beautiful woman in the world. Said to be the daughter of the god Zeus himself, her beauty was a divine gift and a terrible curse. She was the wife of Menelaus, the king of Sparta, but her fate was not to be a quiet one. Helen is often painted as a villain, but the myth is more complex. Was she a willing lover who ran away with a handsome prince? Or was she a victim, abducted against her will? The story leaves her motivations shrouded in ambiguity. Her counterpart, the man who sparked the war, was Paris, the pretty boy prince of Troy. He was the second son of King Priam. A prophecy at his birth warned he would be the ruin of his city. To avoid this fate, he was left to die on a mountainside, rescued and raised by a shepherd. Paris was not a great warrior like his brother Hector. His skills lay in charm and with the bow. He was handsome, perhaps arrogant, driven by passion rather than duty. When he judged a divine beauty contest between three goddesses, his choice would seal his city's doom. Every great fire starts with a single spark. For the Trojan War, that spark was a golden apple. The trouble began at a divine wedding. Peleus and Thetis, Achilles' future parents. All the gods were invited except for one, Eris. Eris furious. She tossed a golden apple inscribed, "For the fairest." A bitter argument broke out. Hera, Athena, Aphrodite. Zeus refused to judge. He appointed Paris to decide. They appeared on Mount Ida and offered bribes. Hera offered power, Athena offered wisdom and victory. Aphrodite promised Helen of Sparta. Paris, ruled by his heart, could not resist. He gave the apple to Aphrodite. He won her favor and earned Hera's and Athena's hatred. Soon after, Paris sailed to Sparta. He was welcomed as a guest in Menelaus' court, a sacred trust protected by Zeus. Emboldened by Aphrodite, Paris betrayed that trust. While Menelaus was away, Paris persuaded Helen. While Menelaus was away, Paris forced Helen. He took her, he took the Spartan treasury, and sailed back to Troy. Menelaus returned incandescent with rage. His wife was gone. His treasure was stolen. His honor trampled into the dust. More than an insult, it was an international crisis. Years earlier, Helen's suitors had sworn a sacred oath to defend her husband's rights. Menelaus called his brother Agamemnon, king of Mycenae and high king of the Achaeans. Agamemnon saw a chance to unite the Greeks and to plunder Troy. He agreed to lead the expedition. He sent messengers. The pact was invoked. The fleets were mustered. 1,000 ships gathered at Aulis, ready to sail to bring Helen back, by force if necessary. For 9 long years, the war raged on the plains before the walls of Troy. The Achaean army, vast and powerful, could not breach the city's massive defenses. The Trojans, led by the noble Prince Hector, could not drive the invaders back into the sea. The conflict descended into a bloody stalemate. It was a war of raids, skirmishes, brutal, attritional fighting. They gathered supplies and treasure, but the great prize remained untouched. The gods watched from on high, interfering constantly, helping their favored heroes, hindering their enemies. The tide of battle swung back and forth, with neither side able to land a decisive blow. The turning point came not from a brilliant strategy, but from a bitter argument. In the 10th year, Agamemnon insulted Achilles by taking a captive woman, Briseis, from him. For Achilles, this was an unbearable slight to his honor. Consumed by a towering rage, he withdrew from the fighting. He sat in his tent, refusing to lift a finger to help his comrades. Without their greatest warrior, the Greek forces crumbled. The Trojans, led by the magnificent Hector, surged out from the city. Hector was everything his brother Paris was not. Devoted family man, a dutiful son, Troy's greatest champion. He fought not for glory, but to protect his home, his wife, his child. With Achilles gone, Hector drove the Greeks back to their ships, broke their wall, and began to set their fleet on fire. In desperation, Patroclus begged Achilles to rejoin the fight. Achilles refused, but let Patroclus wear his armor, warning, "Drive them from the ships, but do not pursue them to the walls of Troy." At the Scaean gate, Hector confronted the warrior he believed to be Achilles. With Apollo's help, he struck Patroclus down. Only then did he realize his mistake. When news reached Achilles, his rage turned to a grief so profound it shook the heavens. His anger had a new target. Hector. His mother Thetis procured divine armor forged by Hephaestus. Achilles returned a terrifying instrument of vengeance, slaughtering Trojans without mercy. He hunted Hector across the plain, and, in a tragic duel before the walls, killed Troy's great defender. The fate of Troy was all but sealed. Even with Hector dead, Troy did not fall. Achilles finally met his fate. An arrow to his heel, fired by Paris, guided by Apollo. The Greeks were exhausted, demoralized, and no closer to victory. Brute force would never be enough. They needed a different kind of weapon, a trick. The idea came from Odysseus. They would feign retreat and build a huge hollow wooden horse as an offering to Athena. They burned their camp, sailed away, and hid behind Tenedos, while elite warriors concealed inside the horse waited. At dawn, the Trojans awoke to an eerie silence. The vast Greek army was gone, their camp a smoldering ruin. And standing on the plain, the colossal wooden horse. Great debate. Suspicion. Lyoko unwarned them. "I fear the Greeks, even when they bring gifts." He and his sons were suddenly attacked and killed by sea serpents. The Trojans took it as a sign. Sinon, a Greek left behind, claimed the horse would appease Athena, and was built too big so they would not destroy it. Overjoyed, they celebrated wildly and even tore down part of their own walls to drag the horse inside. That night, Troy feasted and drank. As the city fell into drunken sleep, the moment arrived. In the darkness, Sinon released the latch. Odysseus and his hand-picked warriors crept out, silent ghosts. They killed the sentries, opened the gates, and lit a beacon to the fleet already returning. The trap was sprung. What followed was not a battle, but a massacre. Killing, looting, burning. The royal family was annihilated. Old King Priam was killed at his own household shrine. The women were taken as slaves and prizes of war. Hector's wife, Andromache, was given to Achilles' son. Even Hector's infant son, Astyanax, was thrown from the walls, a cruel act to end his line. Helen was reclaimed by Menelaus. He intended to kill her, but faced with her beauty once more, he could not. The victory was total, but it came at a terrible cost, and it did not please the gods. The Greeks had defiled temples and murdered those seeking divine protection. As a result, their journeys home were cursed. Many heroes who survived 10 years of war would not survive the peace. Agamemnon returned to Mycenae only to be murdered in his bath by his own wife. Menelaus and Helen were blown off course for years. The sea swallowed countless ships and crews. And what of Odysseus? Cursed by Poseidon, he wandered the seas 10 more years, past monsters, sorceresses, cyclopes, and sirens, losing all his men. His struggle to return to Ithaca is the Odyssey, proof that winning the war is often easier than surviving the peace. The fall of Troy marked the end of an era, a cataclysm that brought the heroic age of bronze and blood to a fiery, tragic close for victors and vanquished alike.